Hello and welcome to another BoP preview in terms of the Premier League, and we're back for this Southampton game, and I'm just me and George today, the old men of the channel chilling to get together for once. So, how you doing, brother?
Good, bro. Good, bro. They say that old dogs can't learn new tricks, but we're here trying to break the mold, right?
Uh,
Bring you guys some solid content. We probably won't go too long, but I'm excited. I think there's a lot to talk about. Some interesting tidbits, kind of on Mikel's press conference. Some stuff to discuss about where he'll likely go, what that means, what we can expect. I think Southampton is a really forgiving opponent. They're very similar to Leeds in the respect that, really, even if we were to do something that I don't agree with, we're unlikely to get torn apart because of it. Their pressing structure is really quite open, and if you beat their first block, it's kind of open days and open season. It's not like Brighton and Palace, who will crowd the center pieces. They don't really have the pieces to do that. So, regardless, I expect a much better showing from the boys. Um, but not necessarily by formations, let's say. I think it'll just be the nature of the opponent. It's a very kind opponent for us, just like Leeds would be. So, um, yeah, I'm excited. I think it'll be a time for us to kind of reset boots. There's been a lot. We were just talking off air. Like, I think when you get a couple of losses, people start going and reading into things, both online, in quotes, you know, the conspiracy theories crop out about, people. Probably want to talk a little bit about Emil Smith Rowe, seeing some crazy stuff on the timelines about fitness. When you're a 21-year-old kid, who, by the way, he proved his fitness earlier in the season. If someone's not fit, like, we should probably have a discussion about fitness just in general, because I'm getting really tired of people labeling players as injury prone when we play them with injuries. I'm sorry, but if you play somebody throughout injury, then you're going to expect a future injury. And that's not smart management. You can delve, Kieran Tierney into that boat. You could put in Emil Smith Rowe. Just having a discussion around fitness and maybe a better expectations as fans of what we can expect. Tommy Asu, heard a lot of weird stuff about what this not playing because of betting scandals, and it's just ridiculous. And I think, like, we need to have a proper conversation as fans. And if you don't understand some of the medical jargon, then no problem. Like, we'll try to break it down for you here on this channel, but it does no one any good when you start speculating under that regard, and you start creating these weird conspiracy theories that don't make any sense at all. For example, Kieran Tierney, if we want to have a proper conversation on it, had the most minutes in the squad, bar Emil Smith Rowe, ironically. Um, and when you do that, and you push someone to the edge, and you push someone to the red zone, when they do get injured, I have a very hard time explaining that as injury prone. Medically, if we see a joint that's compromised, you would expect that joint to kind of break down on a regular basis, right? Aaron isn't experiencing those things. Having we haven't even got as specific about what the procedure was, but just from the tape drop, Curran, like, it was it was a laparoscopic entry on the medial side, which is at the side of the knee, right? So there's
no,
only a couple things that it could be: meniscus or his MCL. And between those two things, especially with the timeline of him being back in 2 months, it's not his MCL, so it's probably a meniscus. It's probably a slight tear in the meniscus, and they're just cutting a partial cut of the meniscus. Now, great, great recovery rate, but that, by the way, isn't being injury prone. That's a hit. Okay,
yeah.
trauma.
I think the main thing we have to differentiate between is long-term recurring injuries and
Mhm.
impact injuries. I think there's a massive misconception between someone's injury prone because they got hit versus someone's injury prone because they've had a recurring injury in a specific area that is prone to either a re-tear or a re-injury of the area. These are two very different things, and you have to talk about a lot of different things. So, for example, how big is the muscle group, for example, or how intricate is the ligament that you're tearing, for example? Is it something that will snap and is hard to get back into place?
Is
These are
there
all
good
different
blood supply?
situations.
Like, is it a smaller
Blood supply,
ligament?
exactly.
You know, like on the knee, if you had to tear, you want to tear the outside ligament. So the lateral,
Yeah.
we call it, there's an LCL, and then there's a medial or an MCL, which is like the side closest to your private parts, if you
Yeah.
really need to know. And those two are ones that you would want
Very
to
fixable.
very fixable, easy entry. They got a lot of blood supply. So yeah, if you do have an injury, that's great. You want to look at maybe Tommy's injury, like calf strains, really prone to re-injury. If anybody is a past basketball player or football player, those are very prone because they're all about explosions, right? Like your quads, your hammies, those are
Yeah.
other muscle groups that are very, very prone to re-injuries. They're big muscle groups, and so what happens is if you rush them back from injury, which he did do against on Liverpool,
Mhm.
you run the risk. You make a calculated risk, and if he wasn't ready and you were riding that red zone and he does tear the opposite side, you leave yourself open to a 3-month stay. Like that is kind of the risk that physios play. I mean, it's not a and I think part of the frustration is that fans don't know, and a lot of injuries are gray areas. And that's not something fans understand because we see things in black and white. So I can sympathize with some anxiety of fans, but just to like dispel some things. I mean, Emil Smith Rowe, for example, people are now saying he's going to be injury prone. Crazy to me. This is a kid who
No.
still hasn't even grown into his full body. He's yet to be 21. And in fact, most people, regardless of you playing elite sport, by the way, get muscular injuries as you grow. It's just a natural phenomenon. There's tons of growing pains. There's tons of things involved until you're about 23. That's really when your kind of musculoskeletal system is set from a perspective of does it grow or not. And beyond that point, there isn't much physical potential for you to realize both bone wise and soft tissues. So that maybe that could help some people if you're just tuning in to understand some of the youngsters that you're getting. If you see recurring injuries up until I'd say about 23, that's very normal. Let alone elite sport when you're asking somebody to push their body to the limits and they may not be fit. In an ideal circumstance, you're getting rest and lift your leg and you're leaving it alone for 3 months. These are elite sport. We need them back for the next week. So the physio plays a role in trying to push the tissue when it's not ready. This is natural. I think we saw some of it in some of the Spurs documentary. You saw a little glimpse. Um, but these are kind of the push and pull that the physios and the manager departments are going to make with your players. And so when we talk about fitness and we talk about injuries, I just thought it would be important to talk about that because there's been a lot on people's
Yeah, I
minds.
mean, I think to simple it down a bit, basically your body, especially your bones, for example, your bones have basically the two ends of the bones are called, you have a metaphyseal zone, which is basically the bit between the middle and the end. And in there, you have what's called ossification zones or ossification plates. And these are the areas where the bone grows. So you have growth throughout your adolescence into your early 20s. So into your early 20s, your bones are still growing. And this means that the amount of muscle you have to adequately um, train your muscles to handle with the mass of bone that is increasing. And the length of bone is increasing. So you have extra tension on the muscle. So sometimes in late teens and early 20s, you're going to have, as George mentioned, a lot of muscle injuries because the muscle is unable to keep up with the growth of the entire body. And that is the difference. So if you have someone who has a soft tissue injury, say at, I don't know, at 18, 19, it is an issue, but the thing is, the difference is you have to look not only at the zone of the muscle. So, for example, is it on your arm, your leg? Is it a foot muscle, for example? You have muscles all over your body. There are muscles that have different sizes that are more prone to re-injury because the actual when you rip them the first time, because of the mass of the muscle, it makes it more prone to re-injury as well. So it's as simply as possible. It's basically the muscles have to catch up to the growth of the body, and that's what I'm struggling with critiques of Emil right now because his musculature has just not caught up to the speed of the growth of his body at this moment in time.
Well, I mean, you have a look at him, mate. Like, very simply, he's taller. I think everyone can
Yeah,
say
he's
that. As
taller. Yeah, I
as he
think
moves
that's the
about,
simplest way you can put it. Yeah,
he's taller. He's growing into his body. These are just natural growth kind of differences. And look, if you want to really look at Kieran and Thomas Partey, when you look at it, this was a case of maybe Arsenal and the physios. They may have passed the marks, but you run the risk, right? It's like an 80% chance of you being okay, and then 20% not. Especially when you're pushing for a guy to get back to fitness as soon as possible. And when you do tear and when you do those things, you get into an injury re-injury cycle that can be really tough to get out of.
yeah.
And you do need full fitness to do that. So I think with what the cards that have been dealt, we'll take the Thomas Partey news as it comes across. I still think realistically it's between 4 to 6 weeks because it looked like a grade 2. It didn't look like a serious strain. So that's
It didn't look
otherwise I
like
would
a.
have
It didn't
ruled him
look a
out.
tear. It looked like a partial. It looked like a grade 2. It didn't, and it definitely was not a grade 1. The way he limped off, there was just no
No,
way.
no. I mean, I knew he was out for a decent amount of time. The issue
Yeah,
was, did he
I would
tear it?
assume a
Was he
month to
out?
6 weeks.
Yeah, was he
Yeah,
out? Period. And it doesn't seem like it is. So you do in those you do have to take them kind of day by day, and we'll see kind of where we end up with that injury. But I guess moving to Southampton, and
yeah,
uh, Tapera does make a really good point after listening to the presser. We're kind of just talking about this off air. It seems like there is a big defense of Xhaka at left back. Um, when I heard and I saw those quotes, I tend to agree. I was not a fan. I will critique Mikel when even it seems as though that he's going to be going with Shaka left back. But one of the ways that we can still improve, I guess, our kind of standing with Shaka left back, if that's going to be a thing, is you have to add Mohamed El Neni in the pivot. We do need an extra body in the pivot because I think what we highlighted kind of in other areas was we want to make sure that we're still creating that overload, right? Like the whole thing is building in a 3-1 versus a 3-2, right?
yeah,
Um, that's that's the debate. And what basically Crystal Palace and Brighton have done is adding an extra player in midfield so that when you do build in a 3-1, you're outnumbered constantly, right? Our markers with Emile Smith Rowe as well as Martin Odegaard who drop deep are being carried by those interior options, and then one person out of their um, one person out of the two. So McAllister would drop deep, or Welbeck would drop deep and fill in for the defensive midfielder, which was Sambi, right? Like that's what we were facing at Brighton. And so if you add Shaka left back once again, I'm really not a big fan because those big progressive passes that really you're putting them 10 to 15 yards back. So you're basically just helping the team go from their third to the middle third. And that's not a problem that we have. Um, I would much rather that be in midfield, which is when we saw the biggest change kind of in Brighton at second half. But if he still needed that option at left back to be a left footer in a sense, which I completely disagree with. But if he was there, adding a body with Mohamed El Neni is absolutely the method that we need to do. And it's not so much about quality of Sambi, it's about off the
just
ball
body.
options, right?
Yeah,
Like it's less to do with a need to open up on the ball, but it's more just off the ball. We know that Sambi is not 100% in his marking and his positioning. He'll get dragged out. We saw it for the goal, right? When in our breakdown. So
yeah,
adding another body in the middle of the park there is going to help us, especially with Southampton, who play with Armando Broja, who is a threat as an outlet there. Very, very good threat, a player I rate significantly highly. And they've also got Che Adams and Adam Armstrong, which are two strong forwards that they look for knockdowns and they look to play second balls, right? Um, when you look at it, we're probably going to be facing something like a 4-4-2 in all likelihood. Really just depends on Broja. I think he's all fit. I didn't really
he's
see
fit.
him.
It was basically the whole thing is he's not allowed to play against Chelsea. I think that's the
Exactly.
reason. I think that's the main reason he was out.
Yeah, and I didn't see any major injuries to Southampton,
No,
but as it is worth mentioning, guys, they've lost 4 on the bounce at home. In total, they haven't won in the last 6 fixtures in the Premier League. So this is a team that aren't in form, and they aren't in form for good reason, right? Hassan Hoodle is one of those managers that I struggle to hear why he's rated so highly. I get very much Bielsa like um, tendencies from him,
yeah,
where
very high press, very sort of like we're going to hunt you.
Yeah.
and we're going to try and get the ball off you and screw whatever. If you get past us, then you get past us, but we will try not to let you get past us, sort of thing. He does. I don't think his block works very well either. He tries to go man to man. It doesn't really work, and it's difficult. So
Well,
it's
it's
just about
suicidal,
breaking that
right?
press.
Like he goes man
Yeah,
to man, right? And he does rely on the aspect of if he loses his 1v1 battles, he loses his ability to compete.
yeah,
And he dies by that sword, which, look, fair play if that's your opinion on how you view teams and how you view what you want to do, but it does lead to these patches of form where they look phenomenal to then looking really quite poor, right? Like, I mean, earlier in the season, he was heralded as a top 10 manager. Um, I don't agree with that. I think we're facing a very nice team for us. We struggled breaking through blocks, and it resulted in a lot of U-shaped passing. That was kind of the big story. I don't think that we're going to see that because they leave a lot of spaces when they do press and packs. And like I said, if you beat their first block, there's going to be a lot of space in behind, and that's what Chelsea, Leeds, Watford even exploited.
I mean, Watford had Sarr and Dennis just run riot against them,
Yeah, they just
and
ran the channels,
it's
right?
just run the channels. And I think this leads to a good point because from the presser, he did mention about Lacazette having private reasons that he's not going to go into, not training, but he might be able to play. Will we finally get our dream, George? Is it finally going to? Are we finally going to see what we've been asking for like 9 months now?
I hope so. I
I
mean,
hope so too.
I'll be honest with you, mate. Like he deserves criticism, because at this point, it's him making a decision to the detriment of the team. And if you're
Mhm.
not going to win, you deserve the criticism with that. I don't agree with it, and I can't agree with Mikel when he realizes what Lacazette does. Because, mate, it's not just in attack. I made kind of this point in the review, but Lacazette kills our build up. And especially if they're going to add players in the middle of the park to cut off the lane to Martin Odegaard, you're left with a team that can't progress the ball. Why? Because the opposition don't fear Lacazette. They don't fear him getting the ball. And so when he does drop deep, they let him. And so they're able
Yeah,
to mark other areas because they know that Lacazette is not athletic enough to spin them. He's not physical enough to hold center backs and hold his markers. And so what you're kind of left with is slow build up, results in U-shaped passing, and the tempo that you were talking about in the review becomes very apparent. And so it's really simple. We need to change up the striker department in order to increase movement. Right now,
the main thing for me, right? Sorry to cut you off, but the main thing for me is there's no off the ball running from him. He doesn't run and drag markers. There's no collapsing of a block. There's no ability to free up space because if you, for example, you're going to go with Nelly and Saka on the wings, you actually then have space for them to run into, make runs in behind, free up the space. Then he doesn't do that. And I remember that screenshot from the review for Brighton, and that one where it was literally, I'll see if I can find it. There's one where it was like there's like a square of space where Lacazette is, and there's the space for him to run into. Let me see if I can find it. But like it's
well,
just it
it's that
was
space between Lewis Dunk and the third center back. I think it was Joel Veltman, and we just kind of drew a yellow box to kind of show where the space
yeah.
would be. And
I think it's
Lacazette,
gone, but
yeah, it's gone, and Lacazette just has to run into it to drag his marker out, and it's
yeah, that's the one.
because Casado is marking Emil Smith Rowe, who's on the inside, right?
Mhm.
And by running in behind in between Joel Veltman and Lewis Dunk and Joel Veltman can't go because Joel Veltman is marking Martinelli, who's touchline, right? And if Lewis Dunk goes, he leaves the center of his three at the back. But Casado can leave Emil Smith Rowe to follow Lacazette or our striker that moves, and that's how you start to disrupt the system. Now, I do kind of really agree with Lucas here, where in a sense it's going to be a basketball game, and it's going to be a case of if we can beat that first line of press, and boom, you'll be able to get in behind Southampton. But maybe really quickly we can go through our predicted lineups and what you think maybe Southampton will go. What do you think we do, Kern?
So I think back five stays the same. Sadly, I think we're going to go Ramsdale, Xhaka, Gabriel, White, and Cedric. And I think and I hope he's going to go El Neni and Sambi, and then Erdegaard, Saka, Emil, and then Martinelli up top. I think what he's going to go with. The worst case scenario is he goes, for example, ESR, Erdegaard, and Sambi lone six, and he goes, what do you call it? He goes Emil, Martinelli, Martinelli, Saka, and Nketiah or Lacazette. I think that's the worst case scenario. I hope it's the first scenario, but I'm wary that it might be the second.
Well, I think that he'll realize his mistake in terms of a pivot. I'm not worried about the debate between the lone pivot or not. Ironically, I am worried though that he sees Xhaka left back. But I do think he brings in Mohamed El Neni for the pivot. For me, I'd still prefer the Nuno Tavares route that we talked about. I think
Yeah, I
Southampton is
would
actually
too.
a time for a false nine with Emil Smith Rowe, and he kind of did mention, he's lacking
He said
fitness.
he hasn't been really training there. I think that's what he said.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it confirms my suspicions. I was saying he doesn't look fit on the review for a while, and we haven't been told, right? I've been saying that for a while, and it's no surprise to me. But the big thing that I like to look at is if you're not fit, let's reduce your distances where you
Mm.
cover. Like you're gonna play him. Like Emil will play. It's not a matter of him not playing, right? So it's almost as though, okay, do you put him in that left interior spot, which is basically kind of an 8 job, or do you put him in that false 9? Right? Like
Yeah.
that's the debate
Even
for
on the
me.
left wing, if you want to put him left wing and keep him high and use him as an outlet, I
Yeah,
would prefer that to an 8.
you know what? I worry about both those positions only because those are big distances. Just like,
This is
you
true.
know,
Yeah.
like in transition, they're both gonna be covering large distances. So I'd much
Mm.
rather, if you were asking me what to do, have Emil Smith Rowe in the false 9 position that Laka plays. He can form that diamond, so to speak. And, I would have played Nuno Tavares. I would do that. I'd go a buildup of
I
two
still
four
think we
four.
should.
Still think we do, and we should put Martinelli wide and have Nuno underlap, right, in that specific game state. And then you've got, Martin Odegaard, who's kind of in that interior, Saka wide, um, Xhaka, Sambi, and of course the back four there. I don't think we see that. If I'm trying to predict what Mikel will do, I unfortunately do think I don't think it'll be Martinelli that's up top. I probably think it'll be Eddie. There were a lot of crosses
Mm.
into the box in that training edit we were just discussing,
Yeah, there was a lot of
um,
crosses.
and yeah, and so I think that we're gonna see a very similar team. We're gonna see Ramsdale, Shaka left back. We're gonna see, Gabriel White, Cedric. Um, I do think he'll bring in Mohamed El Neni. I do think so. I think he won't go with the singular pivot. I think he will go double pivot, but he'll keep Shaka deep.
If he
Um,
doesn't, if he doesn't, that is really something that I think going forward I will take into account. I think because this it will show repeated stubbornness to move on because you could see there was a mistake in the second half of that Crystal Palace game. You could see how the performance changed, and then to see that Brighton game and to see how the performance changed even when we had that Martinelli left back situation.
Yeah, and I do think that they will start Emil. Like he doesn't look fit, but he's gonna start him still because we need him. We need him. Emil Smith Rowe is our tempo changer.
Mm.
And if anything is gonna happen in this game, we need him to change the tempo and get us
Yeah,
moving. He's the only player that speeds play in this team. If the question is tempo, he's not the one that you take out, and so that's why he's gonna push him through. So again, I think he'll bring in Mo. We'll have Sambi in the pivot. And I think we'll have Martinelli touch line, Emil kind of inside.
I don't mind that. I don't mind that.
Yeah, and I think it's Martin kind of in that traditional 10, and then you're gonna have Saka. And I think he'll keep Eddie on the bench only because we need a goal threat. So I've seen a lot of people thinking that Eddie would be in there, but I do think the biggest change is because we need a goal threat to change it up kind of on the pitch. And it's really nice, actually. I hate saying this. He had a poor cameo, but Nicholas Pepe will be important. The bench will be important in this game. Very important. And I don't see us starting Pepe because personally it's a decision of dropping Bukayo to a position that, he's not best in. And that you don't solve a hole by creating another hole in the team. I've seen a
Could
lot
you
of
put him at
those with
9,
shouts.
maybe?
No, He's shown he can't play a 9, especially in the Premier League. He's our best finisher, but he's our best finisher 1v1, and the space won't be there. I think a lot of people are forgetting Southampton will be a 4-4-2. So again, how do you beat a 4-4-2 block that is similar to Burnley-esque? You do it with movement and tens inside the interior, right? Like you can't do it with crosses and 1v1s. Pepe is not going to have space wide to go 1v1, so that's not something that we could do. I do think if things aren't working out, you can push Martinelli into the striker role and maybe have Pepe do the touchline role on the left wing, but have him send cross into the box. But yeah, I think Southampton, the bench will be very important. I do agree with Yo-Yo. But I think that we're very lucky to be facing a team that hunts and packs, that is a little bit suicidal in their pressing and their marking scheme to our benefit. They're danger men, obviously Broja and Che Adams, somebody I do rate quite highly. I think we need to be careful of those two, especially Che Adams, who will drop deep, try to make himself a nuisance. I think Gabriel will have to have a really good game. That matchup will be important. And Broja kind of running off their left-hand side, cutting in, means that White will have to be on job just to mark him from the side. I think we do push kind of Cedric high as well in this game because Shaka will be left back, I assume, unfortunately. But evidently, what we need to do is we need to lean into what's made us good, for the last 5 to 6 games. So I think to tie it up for me, it's going to be less about formation, hopefully. If he does go single pivot, he's going to get the criticism. We saw what Brighton did. Learn from it, Mikel. I'm not going to say it again. I'm glad that you changed it at halftime, but let's do it from the start, mate. And if you do those things, and we up the tempo, we keep the build up really nice and quick. We send people wide, create our wide triangles, right? Let's get Saka involved in the game, get Emil involved in the game, and let's just make sure that we're playing to our principles, right? A lot of things I've lost in the last couple games, and they're fixable. They're very fixable. Claim our second balls, and just focus on ourselves. Again, a Southampton team that haven't won in the last four games of the last 5 at home. They haven't won of the last 6 games in the Premier League. They haven't won. They've got something like 5 losses, 1 draw. So this is not a team in form. Does that matter? No, but it is nice to have, and especially from a team that are leads ask in their man marking scheme. So we do have to start strong. And for me, just set the tone because we've had poor couple games. So when you do that as a coach, get back to your basics, have a good first, 5, 10, 15-minute spell, try to get on top, really push to move. So yeah, for me, that's kind of the way we go, both for and against. Maybe I can put up our predictions, but I don't know. Do you want to take this, Kern, mate, in terms of Pepe?
Yeah, I mean, you see, a lot of the times, right, I feel like I ask questions because even when I don't agree with them, I ask questions because I want to hear what these opinions I've seen on the timeline, and I like asking them, because we need to cover them. But in terms of Pepe, I think what Pepe brings is a technical ability to have a specific technical ability, a very specific trait, that cut in and that shot. The ability to get close, the ability one-on-one inside the box to find a goal from somewhere. He's very good at that. And you need that in the last 20 minutes of games. Last 20 minutes of games, last 30 minutes of games, to get that guy that is going to be a goal threat, going to put himself about, maybe get a goal, maybe get an assist, do something. I don't trust him to be able to. I go back to the Norwich game at home where he would legit not be able to control the ball. I just think it's very much, yeah.
I think simply his technical inconsistencies make him a liability to start games. And
I think the best way to put it is he has the technical security in areas that make him sufficient to be a bench option, because the abilities that he has are very congruent with abilities you need to turn a game in the last 20 to 30 minutes.
Look,
He doesn't
despite
have
what
the abilities in large spaces or in transition to control the ball and be in a high sustaining pressure team. He doesn't have that at the moment. So yeah,
Well, I think, mate, like it's really quite simple. Like when you look at it, he's our best finisher in the box, I think.
yeah,
Um, he thrives off big spaces, running onto big spaces, latching on. He doesn't enjoy the physical battle. You need to get him 1v1 in space or in the box to give him opportunity to make a shot. He's good at the final action, but he is really poor in tight spaces with decision making. So, but for me, those things are excellent in a finishing capacity. When I made that comment way, way back about having finishers in the squad, that's what you look for. So less for me in terms of a break in case of emergency, but more so as somebody to push the envelope of a final action. He's somebody that you bring on in the last 20 minutes that can be a goal threat that you just tell, look, mate, like I understand that you're going to be technically inconsistent, but just drive and attack and shoot. That's all we want from you. None of this, kind of coming back, mazy runs. Forget the indecisions. Be vertical and attack the box. And that's a game state that lends itself into the last 10, 15 minutes of a match. You're chasing a game. You really want a player that can just do that and offer you something like that. So for me, that's the role that I see him having right now. In terms to start games, he just doesn't have the mental consistency and the technical consistency to start games. Until you can
no,
fix that, then you can start games. But otherwise, you're not able to. So you're going to choose other players. And again, I still think Martinelli and Saka, and even in this form, are bigger goal threats than Pepe is across 90 minutes. Maybe not in the last 5-10 minutes of games, which is why I think we keep him on the bench for another goal threat. But um, over 90 minutes, they are a lot better. But yeah, I'm going to bring up our predictions because I think we've talked about everything. Did you have any
yeah,
last minute stuff, Kern, at all?
no. I mean, I think we've covered everything.
So we'll go through kind of our predictions. So Curran, thinks that we're going to continue this slide. Go
I
for a
just,
tie 1-1.
yeah, I just, I don't know whether it's just trauma right now or I just see something. I just don't feel like it's just a nagging feeling in my head that just something is
Mhm.
going to go wrong. I don't feel we'll lose this game, but I feel like we'll leave chances on the table, and I just don't think we'll have the ability to get that cushion, and somehow we'll lose a ball in transition or someone will run onto something. There's a lot of things. I just think 1-1, I think, is something that
Mhm.
could happen. I hope it doesn't, and I hope I'm wrong, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, and Chris has got 2-1, and me and Willow got clean sheets. I got two apiece. Willow's got 1-0. Now, I think the big thing for me is when I look at this team, it's a 4-4-2, but it's a 4-4-2 with spaces. And so I think we're very lucky in our opponents. I think I would be a lot more worried if we were facing a team that was better centrally. Southampton aren't great centrally. They've got, Ward-Prowse and Oriol Romeo, and of course our boy Ibrahima Diallo, who is kind of in and out. Um, and I think from us, we're going to get a clean sheet here because of our opposition, who aren't great in the center of the pitch. I don't think it'll be an easy game. I don't think the 2-0 scoreline will be easy. I do think that we get a goal. I know no 3-1 score line because I don't think we have a fit enough team. If we had a fit team, I'd go for a higher score line. But I definitely think that we get a first half goal. I don't know if it'll be early. I'd love one, but I don't think so. And I think we carry that till late in the half, and we'd get a very late goal to make it 2-0. But that is my prediction here. How about you, mate? Any last minute thoughts? Do you want to maybe end on this in terms of Eddie and Laka?
I mean, for me, I just think that at this moment in time, the whole system that was working until it all fell apart the last two games was Eddie's ability to drop deep, and what Eddie does is he's able to stretch the pitch. He's good at running in behind. He's very good in the box. What Laka brings is a different quality, and I think he's just I think in terms of seniority and in terms of the roles he was achieving at the time in that run of form he had. It was a case where Laka was starting. But in terms of weaknesses as a player, I just feel like I feel like Eddie's is very streaky. I think he has the ability you know, he has the ability to finish chances. He's a good poacher in the box, and he's a good striker. It's just that he's not consistent enough, and I don't feel like Arteta feels like it's something that he can trust. Just go and do this because I need you at this moment in
I
time.
think he struggles. So for me, he struggles in contact behind from center backs, and so he pulls wide where he's able to use his quote P and P. Ironically, reminds me a lot of Darwin Nunez in terms of the
Yeah,
profile of striker of what you're
that's very
looking at.
true.
You're looking at a striker who's got a variety of finishes in his locker. I think a lot of the crossbar shots have people warped. He's a very good finisher inside or outside the box. He attacks well, really good attacking with his heading abilities. Very good attacking the 6-yard box. He is. If you ask him to crash and do those things, he's good. He's a good pressing trigger, really front footed, and he will run across the lines. But he does struggle for me with contact behind. He doesn't make the greatest of decisions centrally. I think he benefits from being wide sometimes because it focuses what he has to do. He has a little bit of the Pepe about him with indecision on the ball, especially when he's in kind of possession. He will thrive as kind of the tip of an arrow, somebody that can drop deep, 1-2 touch layoff, and then attack the box. He'd be very good for kind of a mid-table squad. I've always said Eddie Nketiah will
Palace.
score goals. Palace, your Brightons. He is kind of something. He's somebody that has a little bit of dog in him too. Like he will run himself to the ground, and so for me, he has a lot over Lacazette. The only thing that I can say, guys, honestly, is a seniority thing with Lacazette. I've been very critical of Laka for a while. I don't believe that he carries the same hold-up play that people praise him for or believe he can do. I don't think he's as aggressive in the press as people say he do, and I don't think he's got his short back lift anymore. There's a lot of things lacking with Alexander Lacazette that he's just come to the end of his rope and at the end of his career, really. Like I don't have anything against the lad. It's just he's not the same player that he was even a
That
year
ankle
ago.
injury ruined him. It
It,
ruined him.
it
That
ruined him, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of using that because Lacazette always had power in his shots. Okay. And I've heard a lot of people saying that the ankle injury ruined him, but you don't not get a short back lift because you had a major ankle injury. That that doesn't remove your short back lift. He's
it doesn't remove
become
the backlift, but it does make you more cautious.
it
I
can
think
make you
he's
cautious. It can lose your athleticism. Those stuff I understand. What I
his
don't
burst
get,
is definitely gone.
but
His
but
burst is
mate, I don't
completely
get here.
shot.
He's 1v1. Do you trust him to put
Mm.
it to the sides? I
No,
don't. 3 years ago, I did. That has
hundred
nothing to
percent.
do with his ankle injury. I think he's become
No,
extremely,
100%. No, of course not. That
extremely
I get.
indecisive.
That I get. But what I'm talking about is his burst, his ability to get, because the whole issue we have with him is his ability to drop great. His back is great, but he doesn't have the burst or the ability to run into the box and
Do you
finish
trust him
chances.
with a center back behind, especially away?
No. Any answer you give me, I'm gonna say no. I don't trust him at all.
Well, that's why
Like
I think for me, we're just talking, and I don't mind the guy. Like for me, you don't keep a guy for dressing room responsibilities.
no,
And
I just feel like his race is run, and Georgia put it right. I think
yeah,
there's no um just think it's his time. Some players tire out at 30, some players tire out at
look,
37, some
mate,
players run
this
out at 25. His race is run
this
at the top
game
level.
this game at the top level is separated by elite and small margins. Okay, a second delay, a half second
Yeah.
delay is the difference between Lacazette shooting at top corner like at Liverpool when he pulls it back, and him running himself into a hole and defenders catch up to him. Like that split second
Mm.
decision making for me is lost for him at the top level. That's really why he's not scoring goals. Like I think you get Lacazette, I guarantee you in training, he's banging in finishes. Why? Because he doesn't feel the pressure.
Yeah.
Um, I guarantee you the Lacazette that you see in training is not that. And also, anybody that's played the sport has seen that too. But when you do get older and you do second guess yourself and you do second guess your ability and you know that you can't run your race too, you end up overthinking about how I can beat, knowing that if I screw up, I can't get my ball back. I can't, if I screw up and I lose the ball, I'm not able to run back and help the team. I'm kind of a passenger in that sense. So I do think that those are the major reasons with Lacazette. His race has run. I've never liked his type. I've always been somebody that has said I think Lacazette was the biggest waste of money for £50 million. I think it was one of the worst transfers in Arsenal history. And he's a 9.5. He's never been
Yeah,
a complete 9. And people have always said that he's this false 9, which is hogwash. It's what people say when a striker just drops deep. It's my biggest pet peeve. That's not a false 9, okay? You're just talking about a striker that drops deep. Like most strikers can do that. But he's always been this in between, this kind of, 10-9. And look, I can understand that fear can maybe play a role in people making decisions. I get that, but you're an experienced pro. You're older than everybody in the squad. You've been there. You've done it. Those are things that happen kind of for performance for every player, right? Like when it's bad and the going gets tough, every player is going to be like that. But the difference between, Lacazette at 30 and the Lacazette at 28, 27, yeah, there was a lot more killer instinct. It was just quicker. Decision making was quicker. But Lacazette still never scored more than 15 league goals, guys.
no.
So when we talk about these things, I really push back on the idea that Lacazette was ever a killer.
Let me do Benzema, right, is in a different class.
Yeah,
This is not even a discussion. This is not a discussion. Okay, Benzema is on a generational level. He's one of those guys. Lacazette is just nowhere near. He's a very good player.
It's less about an age thing too. Like I think it's like sure,
it's a profile thing
in him, but it's just he's got a quick in his mind, and I don't know if he's got that same drive anymore as well. I'll be honest, Curran, where he wants to play for something. When you do look at some of these guys that are 34 or 35, 36 that still are able to be in the sport, which by the way are your Ibrahimoviches, your Benzemas, your Lewandowskis, they were killers to begin with, but they are all part of teams that are seriously fighting for something. I really think he's grown into his role of a mentor a little bit too seriously, and he's lost his hunger for competition. He's just there, not to collect a paycheck. That's really, really harsh, but he's there just to be part of the squad. And I think we need somebody that's there to want to push us to higher heights. And that's just ultimately kind of what it is. But yeah, mate, I think that kind of runs its race. Thank you for everybody that tuned in, all your comments. It's been really great. Thanks so much, guys. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. You make sure that you guys comment stuff that we can do to improve. Keep with us, guys, because look, the next week there's a lot of football that's being run.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on.
I did not talk about Martinelli there. Absolutely not. No. Yeah. So look, there's a lot of stuff that we got to do. We play tomorrow, but we also play Chelsea midweek, and then the following, actually not the following week, but the following next couple of days, we play our favorite opponent.
Hopefully,
my favorite opponent, probably yours, Kurt, too. This is the one time that you get George, who's just a little bit cocky.
Honestly, after last time, I'm still traumatized. Like you're gonna be off the chain. I know you are, but I'm just gonna be like, look. Because the thing is, we could end there. I'm pretty sure we can end their top 4 challenge.
I've said it last week. I think we do end their top 4 because they
we thought that it would be the December fixture. Me and you both. Do you remember? We thought. Do you remember that video we made where it was like we were going through their fixtures with that Villarreal, Villarreal 2, the Leicester one, all that crap? Well, there's go back and watch about how Man United. There's a video on how Man United are crap. And we thought, look, 9 points in December, that's very, very difficult to claw back. Hopefully, this time, we put them away. But that is a conversation for another day.
Absolutely. And, so, everybody stick with us. I know it's tough, but hopefully we're going to be back to winning ways kind of tomorrow. And we'll be back with you guys for a review. And, of course, the preview and reviews are going to be a little bit nuts. So tons of content for you next week. And thank you so much to Amir. Again, thanks, guys, for becoming a YouTube member. We really appreciate it, mate. Like, it really does mean the world to us. If you guys do want to become members, there's a little button beside that subscribe button that you can click join, and that will get you members, or so I am told. So thank you so much for sticking with us. We're definitely going to be signing off soon, and so I hope we end 2-0 so that we can get up that prediction table and maintain that dominance at the top. But
I,
thanks so
I
much,
hope I'm
guys.
wrong. I don't. This is one of the only times I hope I'm wrong. Okay. But yeah, please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you soon. All right. Bye, guys.